Hi, so I decided today that I'm going to compare Star Wars A New Hope, the original Star Wars, with the new Star Wars Force Awakens movie that just came out. Just a spoiler warning, I'm going to be talking about really, really specific things, so if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend you watch the movie. Hi, my name is Luis Escobar. I'm a storyboard artist on the Simpsons television show. I've been working on the show for over 20 years. I'm not gonna necessarily. This is not a review. I'm going to give you my review at a different time. I've heard a lot of people say that there's echoes of A New Hope in The Force Awakens, or parallels of A New Hope in The Force Awakens, and my position, I hold that it's basically the same movie. It's retelling or it's a retelling or a remake of A New Hope. Um, I think this is why it's gotten such a positive response. Now, this position what I'm about to talk about is neither a positive or a negative. It all depends on your point of view, whether you think this is a positive or a negative. I'm just going to be pointing out the things that I've noticed about the movie from the very beginning that makes me think that it is in fact a retelling or a remake of A New Hope. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't elements from other Star Wars movies in it. For example, there are things from Empire Strikes Back in it, and there are things from Return of the Jedi in it. If any of this stuff is out of order, forgive me. I've only seen the movie one time. So let me begin. I'm going to go beat for beat. I'm going to say that a tyrannical regime attacks their opponents. This is, in Star Wars. I'm just going to call New Hope Star Wars because it's much easier. Star Wars, the Empire comes in and attacks the rebels. And in The Force Awakens, the First Order attacks the Resistance. Now, the Resistance and the rebels are pretty much exactly the same thing, in the same way that the First Order, is exactly the same as the Empire. So, and because the First Order is a tyrannical regime, just like the Empire is, and the Resistance is basically their opponents fighting against the tyrannical regime. So the tyrannical regime attacks their opponents. Then the resistance fighter hides a secret information in a droid, just like Princess Leia hides secret information in R2. The resistance fighter gets caught by the Dark Force wielder in a mask, surrounded by stormtroopers. So Kylo Ren shows up exactly like Darth Vader, surrounded by all these stormtroopers. The only difference is that Kylo Ren doesn't get a really cool theme music when he shows up. Like that, I was like, dude, this guy needs like the Imperial March. Kylo Ren shows up and captures the Resistance fighter in the same way that Princess Leia gets captured by Darth Vader. Then they take the Resistance fighter to their ship and basically they torture him exactly the same way that they torture Princess Leia for information. And then Kylo Ren has words with General Hux, and General Hux is basically Tarkin. They basically serve the same point. The bad guys go after the droid that's got the secret information, just like the Empire goes after R2D2 when they discover that he's got the information. Now, meanwhile, later in the story in Star Wars, Princess Leia gets rescued and escapes from the Empire through Luke Skywalker dressed up in a stormtrooper uniform, and he takes off. He basically a stormtrooper saves Princess Leia. It's not really a stormtrooper, but it's just Luke Skywalker dressed in a stormtrooper outfit, and he takes off his mask, and he's basically an unmasked stormtrooper saves the princess. In The Force Awakens, this also happens. Finn, a stormtrooper, takes off his helmet and saves the resistance fighter, the rebel. Okay, so meanwhile, in Star Wars, the droids, R2D2 and C3PO, end up getting captured by Jawas, who are little space desert scavengers. In The Force Awakens, the droid, BB-8, is captured by an alien desert scavenger. And then Luke Skywalker in Star Wars basically liberates R2 and C3PO. Specifically R2, because he's the guy carrying the secret. In Force Awakens, the droid is liberated by Rey, who is basically Luke Skywalker in this movie, I'm gonna give them both the moniker of Desert Orphan. So she's a desert orphan, and Luke is a desert orphan. So the droid is liberated by a desert orphan. Now, the bad guys looking for the droid end up killing the people she lives with. Like in Luke Skywalker, the stormtroopers kill Uncle Owen, Amberu, and in Force Awakens, the First Order, they basically destroy the entire town, which is basically the people that Rey lives with. So Rey escapes this desert planet that she lives in the Millennium Falcon, exactly the same way that Luke Skywalker escapes the desert planet of Tatooine in the exact same ship, the Millennium Falcon. So they both escape the desert planet in the Millennium Falcon. The TIE fighter fight in the Millennium Falcon is also not necessarily exactly in the same spot as in A New Hope. In A New Hope, in Star Wars, it happens in the second act, and this time it happens in the first. But it's basically the same, fighting TIE fighters in the Millennium Falcon scene as it was when Luke, Leia, and Han were escaping the Death Star in Star Wars. So then, in Star Wars, after they escape Tatooine, Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of teaches Luke about the Force. Now, he kind of introduced the Force in the planet, but he starts teaching him the Force in the Millennium Falcon as they escaped the planet. In The Force Awakens, this is where Han Solo shows up and teaches the younger people about the Force. And that's where, just like Luke in Star Wars, they join together with a smuggler. That's when they also discover that this is where Empire Strikes Back shows up. They discover that Kylo Ren is actually Han Solo's kid. So now we've got kind of a reversal, but he's related to the bad guy, just like Luke is related to the bad guy in Star Wars. We also find out that the bad guy serves a more powerful Dark Lord, just like in Empire when we get introduced to the Emperor. And then we see the Emperor as a hologram, pretty much the same thing. Kylo Ren reports to or Supreme Leader Snoke. He might as well be the Emperor because that's the same thing. In Star Wars, in Act 1, we have Luke enter the cantina, and we have the whole cantina scene. In The Force Awakens, that cantina scene is actually moved from Act 1 to Act 2, which is when they land in the bar run by Maz Kanata, and she basically runs the cantina, and it's shot almost exactly shot for shot, the cantina sequence. It's just in a different spot in the story, but it's the same beat basically. So this is where the Desert Orphan meets a small wise alien, just like in Empire. Luke meets Yoda. In The Force Awakens, Rey meets Maz Kanata. We also get the First Order destroys a planet with a super weapon shaped like a ball. So this is when we discovered that there's Skykiller Base, and it's basically another Death Star. That one is kind of obvious. I think everybody kind of noticed that one. A lot of the stuff that I've been talking about so far are not as obvious unless you actually just take a closer look. Okay, so the Desert Orphan gets Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. This is in Star Wars. This happens in Act 1. In The Force Awakens, it happens in Act 2. They're the same character, and they get the exact same weapon. It isn't even just a lightsaber. It is Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. Okay, so the Resistance gets their droid back with its information. So just like in Star Wars, R2-D2 finally delivers his information. BB-8 delivers his information. After the Empire, or rather, I should say, the First Order attacks that planet, they actually capture Rey. Which is basically a female character gets captured by bad guys, a la Princess Leia. It's the same beat, but with a slightly different character. The Resistance want to destroy the super weapon, but they need the shield to be taken down. This is basically the same thing that happened in Jedi. But the heroes go to rescue the girl, just like Luke discovers when the princess is captured that they're going to go rescue her. So now we have a moment that was in Star Wars, it was in Act 2, and now it's been moved to Act 3. And in so doing, the old mentor, surprise, surprise, gets killed in the process. Just like Obi-Wan Kenobi got killed in rescuing the princess, so Han Solo, the old mentor, gets killed while trying to rescue Rey, even though she really didn't need rescuing. But it's the same. It's the same beat. And not only did the old mentor die, but he died in front of his protege Rey, just like Obi-Wan died in front of Luke Skywalker. And on top of that, the old mentor died at the hands of a younger man, just like Ben was older than Darth Vader. And on top of that, in Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a father figure. It was, in fact, he was basically the father figure for Darth Vader because he didn't literally have a father, so he killed his father figure. In The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren killed his father literally. It's basically the exact same killing for both Darth Vader and for Kylo Ren. That's when the Resistance fighters then blow up the bad guy's base, just like in Star Wars and even in Return of the Jedi. And in Star Wars, the Desert Orphan manages to beat the dark side bad guy by using the Force. Darth Vader loses the battle because the Desert Orphan used the Force. In The Force Awakens, Rey literally just beats up Kylo Ren using the Force. This is why I say that The Force Awakens is a retelling of A New Hope or a remake of A New Hope. The details are a little bit in a different order, but it is basically exactly the same. So in Empire and Jedi have little beats in there too. However, the majority, 90% or 80% of the story is basically A New Hope. Like you could argue that all these beats are, oh, well, they echo or whatever, but it's not really the same story because it's telling something else. It's telling a different story. It's telling something, the story's saying something else. Well, no, because I think the very theme of both of them are exactly the same thing. They have the same moral. And by the same moral, I mean this. I believe that the theme of A New Hope is you can't run away from who you really are. Okay? So, Luke tried to run away from being a Jedi, and everything kind of forced him down that path. And eventually, instead of thinking that he was going to be the pilot guy who's just going to be able to shoot the Death Star down, he had to embrace who he really is, accept the Force. He was able to therefore destroy the Death Star. In the exact same way that Han Solo thought he was a rogue, a smuggler, a jerk, like he didn't care, but he in fact is a hero. He couldn't stop being a hero. So he comes back, he saves the day because he couldn't run away from who he is, and he saves the day. In the same way that R2-D2 couldn't listen to C-3PO because who he really is this super droid who wants to get the job done and get his mission done. This is his job. It kind of runs through like Obi-Wan Kenobi again. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi couldn't run away from who he really is, which is a Jedi Knight who needs to help. No matter how long he stayed away in exile, he couldn't help being the guy doing his job, fighting for justice. So that was the theme. I think this is the very core, the very essence of A New Hope. Now let's take a look at Force Awakens. Force Awakens, exactly the same theme. You've got Finn. He's trying to run away from who he really is, which is he's really a hero. He first runs away from the First Order because he knew he wasn't that. But then he also couldn't run away from the fact that he is this heroic character, kind of the rogue character, kind of the Han Solo character of this movie. Because he was trying to run away, he didn't think he was heroic, but he came back. He couldn't run away from who he really is at heart. The same way that Rey is the same thing. She couldn't run away. She wanted to stay in the planet and try to stay for her family, but no, really, who she really is a Force wielder, possibly a Jedi. She is who she can't run away from it. Han Solo, he tried to run away from being a dad. He couldn't run away from who he really is. He had to be the dad, and that got him killed. Just like Ben Kenobi couldn't run away from being a Jedi, and that got him killed. Kylo Ren was trying to run away from who he really is, which is, I think, at this point he was trying to run away from the fact that he is, in fact, kind of a weak bad guy, and not quite at the level where he is, and he's trying to prove himself to be not weak and show that he actually is strong and awesome. And then at the end of the movie, he discovers that he is in fact week. These themes, you can't run away from who you really are. You're basically saying the exact same thing in both movies. Take this as it is. I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just trying to show you how I see this movie and why a lot of people who also say, oh, The Force Awakens is basically a remake or a retelling or it's basically a New Hope in different clothing, are saying what they're saying. There's so much stuff. I'm sure that there's even more beats that I've missed. Like I said, I've only seen the movie once, but this is what I saw when I watched The Force Awakens. All right. So thank you very much. You like this? Please support me on Patreon. I have a Patreon page, and then I do drawings and stuff like that there, and then you can get some artwork from me. And there you could ask me questions, and then I could make videos about stuff that you think I might be able to answer, or things like that. Or if you want to see me draw something, feel free to ask, and I will see what I can do. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.